Hey now. Alright, hey, we're back. This is module 10 and we're in our perspective view, component mode in Vertex. And I went ahead and jumped to my orthographic front view because what we're going to do in this module is we're going to build this spring mechanism here. Now the spring mechanism is not going to be built to work or to have any engineering quality to it other than that it is going to look like it is engineered. So I went up here and I created a cylinder, okay, and I'm going to come in here to our inputs and looking at the radius here. I'm going to go ahead and start typing in some smaller settings here, and I believe we're going to probably have to run 2 decimal points with this particular radius. We need it to fit within what we created here, that little bridge bracket that goes between the leg units, and we don't want it to be too thick and we don't want it to be too thin. However, I do have to have it a certain height, and I want it to kind of subside into the top seat. So with this particular setting, with this particular cylinder, I want it to be as close to the orthographic reference as I can get. So it's looking pretty good. It's still a little bit wide for the radius is still a little bit big, I should say, for that particular bracket. So I'll take that down. Looks to be like about maybe a, let's see here, a 0.12. That looks a little better. So like a 0.12 I think is a good starting point. My height is a 2.5. Whoa, must have exited by hitting some numbers, so I have to fix that real quick. You can kind of see it's way too skinny now. Yeah, good problem solving exercise here. So I'm going to select it, go back into my inputs, and then make sure I fix that back to a 0.12 and make sure it stays. Click anywhere in the viewport there and it should set it. Nice. Okay, just aligned it a little better. And now I need to create some more geometry. I need some more resolution. And I don't want to use my input. I want to actually create an edge loop. So I'm going to come up here to Mesh Tools, and I scroll down to Insert Mesh Loop. You can also get there from the modeling toolbox, and we'll probably cover this in depth a little bit more. But for now, it's just insert edge loop, and I left it at the default settings. And I created about 6 edge loops just around that bracket. So it looks like such. Pretty good, not too bad. I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to select my cylinder here. Actually, I have to hit Q on the keyboard to come out of my insert edge loop, or you can just go up and select that translation icon. I'm going to freeze transformations. I'm going to delete history, and then I need to create my spring, and I'm looking for a primitive that is called a helix. And go back into poly primitive. I'm going to tear it off here, and let's look. So we have a disk, we have some other choices, but I'm looking for the helix, and it's right below the pipe there, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now when it comes onto the screen, you'll see it's quite large, okay, and it's quite beefy too as well. So let's go into the inputs here, and we'll start to explore a little bit of what this helix can do. And if we look here, we have some good settings, some freedom here that we can kind of change and hopefully get something more like what our reference is. So the coil is the first area we need to look at, and then the height of that coil is right below here. And let's go ahead and extend that out. I think I got it at about 3.7, and then the width, we'll extend that. Maybe have to come back and revisit that, but 1.8, and then we have our radius, and the radius, we have to probably type in some numbers for that one too. We'll shrink down the height I want it to just maybe encompass just the bottom half there. And then in with the coils, I'm going to extend that out to about 6 and come back in here and revisit this height. Change the radius again. So please take your time with these settings until you get something that you actually, you like. You may have to type in some decimals and kind of play around with it a bit until you get, exactly what you're looking for. And it looks like we're getting there. Not too shabby. I'm going to kind of zoom in here a little closer. Move this into position and raise it up. Yeah, not too bad here. Looking alright. I think I may adjust a few more things. And again, this is going to be to your preference. So let's see, maybe about a 0.6 for the width. And smooth out those coils a little bit. So I increase those up just to make it a little bit more smooth. Looks to be about 15, 16 for the subdivision axis and about 61 for the subdivision coil. And come back up here and look at this radius again, maybe 0.8, maybe 0.7. Alright, I'm going to scrunch it a little bit here, bring it down to maybe 1.2. Looking better, okay? Not too shabby. I think that's pretty good for now because, again, it is just a prop. It is just something that will be in our scene. If it was something that was going to be more up front and close-ups on this, considerably, we'd spend some more time on it and to make sure everything is logical. All right, for now I'm just going to move it to about a position that's right below our seat to give us enough room to model the rest of the information, but also not high enough up, or I'm sorry, low enough to where it's going to come off of our main pipe. So next we have to start making some gears. All right, we got to put in some more geometry here, and to do that again we're going to be selecting some primitives. So I'm going to come up here to create, I'm going to poly primitives, and I'm looking for the gear. Nice. All right. And again, if you needed to find the settings or the inputs, you just come over to input and select that, and we can start playing around with some of these settings. Now again, this is going to be to your preference, and these settings are very sensitive. Whole digit numbers can make this gear change considerably, so definitely spend some time and kind of play around with them. Right now it looks like I got about 8 sides. My radius is about a 0.4. My internal radius I'm going to have to come back and revisit. The height, about maybe a 0.1. At least might be a good starting point with that. And let's come back up here to radius and go a little bit smaller, maybe like a 0.2 or 0.3. Yeah, we're going to have to come back in and look at that internal radius because it is awfully wide. So go to the internal radius here, it's right below radius. Actually, let me set this to about a 0.09. Maybe a 0.1 where I had it previous. Maybe do a 0.1. Let's try about a 0.14. That's not too shabby. May not have to mess with the internal radius. No, let's go ahead and change that again. Let's go to a 0.04. Pretty good. Very good. We could even close that radius off too. I mean, we're not going to see it, the internal radius that is. Change this out a little bit. There we go. Alright. So again, in the inputs, definitely spend some time, place some numbers in there and see what kind of effects you get. And scale this out just a little bit. Alright. Go back into the internal radius here. We'll leave it at 0. Okay, everything else looks pretty good. And you can play around again with these settings. You can get some really cool effects. Alright, so we have our gear here, and I'm going to go ahead and place it and maybe just put it right here on top. Not too shabby, looking pretty good. Alright, very cool. So now all we have to do is to start to duplicate. So I went ahead and hit Control D and duplicated and moved this gear down, okay, below the spring. So this is kind of like the compression area. Not too shabby. But I want to also utilize those edge loops again here, and I'm going to go ahead and place one here and here. Now to get to my edge loop tool, it was the last tool that I used, so the last tool that you use is always located on the left menu bar. I'm going to go ahead and select this portion here, maybe scale it in or out. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and extrude it. So let's go to Faces. I'm going to drag select that ring, and I'm going to hold down Shift here, and you'll see Extrude pop up onto the screen. So with that, you can also go up here to the shelf. I meant to tell you that too. There's an icon there, and there's also an extrude selection inside our modeling toolkit. But for now, I'm just going to hold down Shift and use the middle box and just scale that out a little bit. And then with Shift released, I'm going to go ahead and scale that face down. Well, there's our spring mechanism. So in the next video, in the next tutorial here, we're going to go ahead and attach the seat and finish up. See you then.